Hello, and welcome everybody to Association Transformation. This is our new conversation advancing the impact and evolution of nonprofit organizations. We are here seeking a diversity of thought and want to bring new examples to light of those innovations in action. That and a commitment to mission-driven organizations has spurred this transatlantic collaboration between the teams at Brewer Pratt Solutions and Consort Strategy. I'm Elisa Pratt.
And I'm Andrew Chamberlain.
And together with our special guests, we'll take a deep dive into those issues, topics, and challenges facing the association community. We've seen just about everything from membership to mergers, boards and leadership, advocacy, education and training. Nothing is off limits. Any subject that affects the nonprofits and their survival or their success is up for discussion.
And so today we want to explore who is your member in the year 2030. For the first time in modern history, we've now got 5 generations of employees working together. Baby boomers, however, are starting to leave, focusing more on their retirement, and they'll be taking years of experience and knowledge with them. And this exodus may be even more dramatic thanks to COVID, as some of our colleagues and some of our senior leaders simply now don't want to deal with the multitude of challenges of change and uncertainty that they're facing. Generation X is replacing them, moving up the hierarchy, but the majority of the workforce now are Millennials or Generation Y, and by 2025, 75% of the workforce will be a Millennial. By 2030, which is just 9.5 years away from now, Generation Z will start to occupy senior leadership roles. And indeed, I can't even believe I'm saying this, Generation Alpha, who knew, will be leaving school and they'll be starting their careers. So how do we, as membership bodies and trade associations and professional associations, how do we respond to so many different characteristics in terms of demography, in terms of members' expectations, in terms of their understandings of technology? How do we make sure that we stay relevant? How are we innovative? How are we ahead of the curve and not lagging behind in terms of what members want from their professional organisations? And joining us this week is one of the sector's, in my opinion, one of the sector's most innovative chief executives, Sarah Poulter, who is the chief exec of the Chartered Institution of Waste Management here in the UK. She's joining us today to discuss who is the member of 2030. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Andrew.
Good. I'm glad I saw you laughing there when I was reaming off the alphabet in terms of people's generation. I mean, obviously, I think I must be Generation Z, I think. Our producer is laughing at me as well. Come on, people. I've still got my hair.
Is
Come
that
on.
yours? Is that yours, though?
So, yes. It is, and you know, I went to the barber's last Monday, and it was like, it was the most palatial feeling I've ever had. Honestly, after 4 months, it was wonderful. I loved it. I feel young again. I feel like Generation Y now. That's how I feel. So yeah. What does that? All right, Sarah, you've got a big membership. Tell us a wee bit about the Chartered Institute and where you're at and how big you are.
Okay, so the Chartered Institution of Waste Management is fairly smallish membership body. We have nearly 6,000 individual members, and we have an absolute range of ages across CIWM, but pretty much about 40% of our membership currently is sort of aged 40 upwards. So, it's
be careful
heavy.
what you say. Be careful what you say in terms of age now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want you to upset Elisa.
Oh, poor Elisa. She only looks at 25.
I'm firmly an Xer and proud of it. I was shocked to learn that there's even a new generation that's been named for those who will be born during the COVID, the COVID challenge. Those who, I think, parents were locked away in exile for too long. There will be a special generation named just for those.
Oh, nice. Do we know what that is?
I hadn't heard about that one.
No. Quite frankly, who had energy during all of that pandemic? I don't know. Anyway, so your members are predominantly over 40, so Generation X and X plus.
Indeed, they are, and working in just an absolute range of the professions. So we have everything from everyone from those that are out there now collecting refuse, through to those that are leading some of the biggest waste management companies. Yeah, and everything in between in our membership. Interestingly, though, over the first sort of 3 months of this year, we had a huge increase of student members, those that are sort of around, their early 20s that have come into the membership body. And we have no understanding of where that's come from, but we had somewhere in the region of 350, bearing in mind our membership's only around 6,000 just within the first few months of the year, and that's steadily growing.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That actually, 5% of your membership.
Yeah.
That's quite extraordinary. Do you know why that's happened, or have you been able to do any analysis?
No, we've got the only thing that we can put it down to at the moment is the public's interest in Blue Planet. So, plastics and the David Attenborough effect and all of those things, really generating that interest in waste management.
Right,
but other than that, where it's suddenly come from is quite surprising, but it's continued through COVID, whereas our other membership demographics haven't changed. So very interesting.
That is interesting because we did so Elisa and I did a podcast for a different channel a couple of months ago, and we were talking about is the future of associations behind us. Because I've heard a few people I think wrongly assert that the model is defunct, but actually that speaks volumes to me. So. Yeah, I think it's really interesting how that, and I'd love to see some research as to what it is. What do you think, Elisa?
Well, my question for Sarah is now that you have them, now that they've arrived, what are their expectations? I think as we talk about being relevant and trying to keep up with the changing needs of these generations, my real curiosity is in what do they want? What have they come for?
Yeah. I think for us, the conversations we've been having with some of those individuals have been very much around their need to link in and find others doing similar jobs and being able to build their network. So that's what we've been doing, and we've embarked on quite a plan recently to really help that network continue through COVID, which obviously has been a pretty tough time for anybody trying to link up with anybody or find their peers.
Is it the case in because do individuals do they have to be members of the institution to advance their careers?
They don't have to. So this is a nicety to have. Yeah.
Yeah, and yet you've managed to actually increase your membership during COVID.
We have, yes, yeah, but from that younger generation. But I also think probably something to do with a lot of the digital improvements we've been making. So we've spent quite a lot of time understanding our members' needs from everybody. So we haven't focused on just those that have joined. And we've launched a new platform, which is called CIWM Connect. And it was just basically a way of bringing together our members at a point where they can't get out and network. They're not in the office talking to colleagues, and they've how do we create that community was really where we started from. How do we continue that community? And we launched that in partnership with Cantaris, in a very, very quick turnaround project, which took us
Wow.
10 days.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I was waiting to see Elisa's response there.
Well, I had all these questions prepared, for those who want to do something similar. What would you recommend? And now that I know that it's just jump off the cliff and hope it works, congratulations. That's amazing.
It was.
Yeah.
It was an absolute jump off the cliff. But our members were saying they wanted to talk. They wanted to find some way of getting together with each other. And we were already putting on some webinars, but it wasn't quite ticking what everybody wanted. So we launched our online community. It's the quickest launch our partner has ever done in terms of a platform. And, for us, I don't think we would have got the engagement that we've actually got. We had 22,000 page hits within the first few weeks of launching it, and thousands of our members going in and reading it, and if not posting it, we know that they're there and they've been in and looking. Within a couple of days, we had over 200 people going into the coffee area and introducing themselves. And basically, we just set up a very informal networking area where people could just go in and post, how are you? What are you doing? And just seeing what kind of responses, how's everyone getting on through this really difficult time? And actually, it turned into all these members going in and telling each other about each other and connecting with each other which was just amazing.
I think it's so great that you internalized that and created an environment of your own that wasn't dependent on Facebook or LinkedIn. I see so many organizations using the public platforms, and the reality is you don't own that real estate, and that could get pulled out from under you at any time. So having architected something proprietary is I know what I advise my clients, and I'm so glad that you invested in that. You have the chance then to push them to what you want them to see, and can control that data. So that's amazing. Congratulations on getting something up that's functional. How are you now either monitoring what they're doing or using that platform to advance your other programs and services?
So the platform at the moment is being monitored daily so that we can see what everybody's doing. And we've put in place a community manager whose role it is to basically work with everybody on the platform and help drive up the stats around the platform, and just help with that engagement. I should just mention that this is a platform only for members at the moment, and that is helping us drive new member interest as well, because we've been marketing it outside of the membership, and letting people know it's there, but then they're going to go into the platform, and obviously to access it they've got to be a member. So we've had some people call us to say, I'm really interested in the platform, how do I become a member?
Because you would never have offered anything like that to non-members, surely. That would never have been a business model in the past, would it?
Maybe
I would
go ahead, sir.
I wouldn't have thought that we would, because I think always with these things, trying to drive up membership is, it's another tool, but also it's that member value, isn't it? You're able to talk peer to peer with somebody who's got very similar values to you.
I'm asking because I'm also reflecting as we're talking on that. There's been a lot of discussion in the last 2 or 3 months in terms of member value, and because things are offered online, and we've touched on this a couple of times already in the pods, there's this perception that it should be free to use, or it should be heavily discounted or not behind the firewall, or for whatever reason, because I can't actually physically sit down in the same space as you, I'm therefore not getting the same value. But it sounds to me like what you're demonstrating there is that technology absolutely is the right tool to generate member value when used in the correct way, in the right way that's responding to members' expectations. Because again, I think it's a case of sometimes we think we know what our members want, and then we end up investing a whole lot of cash, and we just may as well have just thrown it out the window. And I think it's really interesting. You said that, we took a look at what everybody wanted, and I think I'm as guilty as everybody about talking about the next generation of member and future-proofing the association and making sure we've got sustainability, making sure that we're, transformative today for tomorrow, and then, of course, neglecting what our loyal members have wanted. And so when you say what our members wanted, was there much of a difference between, those at the kind of Generation X, and those who are the millennials just coming into the work environment?
I think for me, it's probably more about delivery models and how people want things delivered. In terms of the differences, but they all wanted essentially the same things. And, Connect came about because people wanted to talk to people, and they wanted to talk to other members that are doing similar jobs to them. And, they want to be able to ask those difficult questions to somebody. We are constantly now seeing these questions come through that we didn't realize that members had. And some of the very strange questions that we used to get through our technical lines are now being dealt with through CIWM Connect, and members are answering each other's questions, quite highly technical questions around what you do with a particular material or waste. It is being answered in this way, and that wouldn't have happened previously.
So, I mean, Elisa, does this mean that are we daring to be too over sophisticated in asking the question, what do our members want in 2030? Who's the member? Because actually it sounds to be like, fundamentally members just want the same thing.
Sarah's experience, what resonates with me is that despite the assumptions that Generation Z or the millennials don't have people skills and they just want to hide in their flats and text and post and Instagram, there is that human need, and that human need remains valuable. And connectivity, bringing people together for diversity of thought, for best practicing, for industry advancement, that's really what associations are about. And that, to Sarah's point, it's about how. It's not the what. It's not even necessarily the why. It's the how. And it will, I think, put associations in a position to have to deliver and communicate and share on multiple platforms in multiple capacities at the same time over the coming years and coming generations. You're not just going to be able to have the magazine or the newsletter or the website or the Twitter feed. That's not enough anymore. So as your membership diversifies, you may not need to find a new why or a new what, but you'll have to deliver it and be agile and flexible in your diversity with technology at the forefront. And with the loss of in-person meetings, this may be the reality check that a lot of associations needed, whether or not they're seeing some of the shifts in age group and demographic that Sarah's already seen.
And that being agile, I think, is a really important point, because for us, we have engaged with, over this period of time, members that we would never have engaged with. They're not the members that are sat on some of our committees and sat around the table inputting to some of our work. And if we weren't agile enough in terms of changing what we're doing very quickly to respond to what was going on in the environment, to be able to give our members what they needed very quickly, there's no way we would have had the sort of engagement that we've got at the moment. The members that are coming forward and talking to us now, have not been reaching them previously. And I can guarantee if COVID hadn't happened, we still wouldn't be reaching them in 2 years to come. And we'd still be working out how are we going to do it. And one of the things that I think really helped for us was not only we ran something called pulse surveys, which basically every 2 weeks tested the pulse of our members to see where are they, how are they feeling, what can we do to support them. That gave us a huge amount of feedback, but also we've got membership development executives who constantly just picked up the phone to members and talked to them about what they were dealing with and what problems they've got at the moment and where do they think that we can support them or help them with any of their issues. If we hadn't have done that, we wouldn't have understood that we needed to be very agile, we needed to change, we needed to do things very quickly and in a different way.
But you're talking about it in the context, sorry Lisa, if I may, talking about it in the context of retention here. And arguably, from what I'm hearing, is that if we hadn't found a new way of engaging with people, well, we may never have, we'd still be asking that question maybe 2 years hence. But is there an inference that actually member apathy in terms of they're just paying their direct debits, they're just carrying on their membership because that's what they always do? Was it really worth the investment if they're just going to stay members anyway? Do you know what I'm saying?
I don't know that we know that they were going to stay as members.
Okay.
During that period of time, during COVID, we decided to not continue with our plans for growth in our membership, but actually to retain the members that we've got and absolutely look after those that we've got. So we did go down that retention angle, but on the basis of the fact that we thought that we might lose some of them during the next number of months through COVID.
Well, Sarah, I was wondering about the pulse surveys. I thought those were very interesting. With that frequency, what type of response rate were you receiving?
So we were getting in the region of about 25 to 30% of the membership.
Wow, that's amazing. That's
responding.
It's so important that nonprofits and really any organization looking for a solution starts with the right question. And you guys were obviously willing to listen. That's waiting to craft your strategy and your approach until you had done the listening and you had fully understood what the issues were. And maybe it's not the right approach to ask who the member of 2030 is. Maybe we need smaller bites at this. Maybe it's about who's your member of 2021 and being ready to adapt your value proposition, to ask new questions and be ready to listen forever, throughout, frequently, and forever. I'm amazed. Those pulse surveys sound amazing.
Yeah, staggering. It's staggering.
Yeah, I don't think we can stop listening to members. For me, it's got to be. This is just during this period of time, learning so much about members that we would normally never hear from, and we would only hear from those very vocal few. And that's really shaped our proposition. And for me, moving forward, I want to keep that up and want to keep listening to our members so that we make sure we keep reshaping our proposition, and it keeps moving on with our members.
Yes, they're going to have this expectation now, and I think that's one thing we will see with the younger generations who, many stereotype and assume they come to the job and they want to be their boss right off the bat, and their expectations are quite high. And with the status quo that you've set, they will, I think, always have the expectation of being listened to or being heard.
I hope so.
Don't worry, Sarah. We'll ask Andy to cut out that bit where you says we'll always listen to our members from now on, right? If you need us to, we'll rewind that bit so that it's not committed to the record forevermore. I want to talk about I like, obviously one of the things I really love about working with Sarah is the flexibility and the adaptability and the willingness to grasp an opportunity. And the stuff that you did, not just with connect, but I mean, I know there's some other bits and pieces that you did during the pandemic that sort of moved the organisation on considerably. Is it fair to say that you were more flexible as an organisation? You were more flexible and adaptable during COVID than you'd had been previously?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. Completely, we feel like a different organisation. And I don't know whether that was partly to do with when we went into COVID, we set ourselves only one thing to do, and that was to look after our members during that period of time. So it meant that the whole team didn't have to worry about anything other than getting behind whatever it was our members wanted at that point. So lots of those additional things that you have in your proposition that don't necessarily always add value, they came way down the bottom of the list in terms of priorities, and we were able to just really focus on what was important at that point in time, and we still are. We've just launched, or a couple of weeks ago launched, our mentoring platform, which again I think probably during COVID had a much better take up than it would have done normally. So we've got over 80 mentors already on the platform, and a number of relationships that have already started. So that's been doing pretty well too.
So are you describing a culture change though? You're saying, is it really a culture change you see, or is it just been staff and the board responding to necessity during COVID? Are you worried that we might slip back into old habits and a decision? Look, I mean, you turned that around in 10 days. In pre-COVID, a decision like that would have taken months, wouldn't it? We've all sat in those painful meetings.
Yes, yeah, and I think the board gave me the remit to do whatever was required, so that freed me up without the red tape. So that was really helpful. But it's also, I think, built up a lot of trust between the board and myself to make to be doing the right things. So that was, it's a really important thing. In terms of culture, I think our culture has changed. I think some of our team who are perhaps less entrepreneurial in their style have suddenly realized, actually, we do have to work at this a bit better. Don't tell me it's not all perfect. We've got a lot to work on. But the team have really embraced it and enjoyed working in this way. So now it's my job to make sure we continue on this track and not revert backwards.
And how are you going to measure success?
So success at the moment, it's a pretty tough one because our KPIs all got thrown up in the air during COVID. And, for me, we set ourselves a goal of retaining all the members we've currently got. So it's very much on retention at the moment and ensuring that we keep those members through to the next renewal period, which will start at the end of the year.
Right.
Well, Sarah, I think you've gone into this circumstance with so many positives. I mean, a board who has given you that long leash to prioritize and be decisive. COVID has given organizations the opportunity to jump ahead and jump off that cliff in some ways, to experiment and prototype, and it's worked for you. I mean, this is pushing you to not only different experiences for your membership and your membership of different age groups and different needs. I think you also benefited from a group that were somewhat unified in their need. A lot of organizations with different groups, different communities are going to face less continuity of request or service. So I'm excited to see what you've done and keep measuring those maybe now more qualitative versus quantitative KPIs, since we're not measuring things by butts and seats or dollars in the door. Things may have to become more qualitative. But I really appreciate this. I think you've helped us refocus this question and maybe bring it back to something more scalable and more current. That planning now for 2030 is probably as irrelevant as having a 10-year strategic plan. That given our circumstances, we do need to be dealing in 3, 6, 9-month chunks and focusing on flexibility and agility. And your leadership through an experience like this, I think, has been really, really telling. And I appreciate you telling your story. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sarah. I really do appreciate it. Isn't it bizarre, though, that, that's where we are now, is that maybe the world just looks completely different in 12 months' time. This just blows my mind. But then had we planned 10 years ago in 2010 for what the world looked like today, it would look nothing like I'd anticipated. I thought we were all going to be flying around in our own personal, electronic flying machines, planes, cars.
Well, just think
whatever.
back, summer
Like
2019 feels like an eternity ago.
Yeah.
The good old days.
Summer 2020 feels
The
like
good
an
old days of
eternity ago.
2019.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Sarah. We're going to wrap this up now, but come back and speak to us again in the future and tell us how those KPIs have played out for you. I'm very interested to keep watching what the CIWM does, absolutely, and to keep talking about it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Excellent. So, we hope you'll join us next time and every time as we explore the issues new and necessary for this for our not-for-profit community, both here in the UK and in the US. I do love, by the way, when you introduce us as a transatlantic collaboration. Your voice gets even more American. It's like you got a real southern twang when you say it. We really do hope you've enjoyed the pod, and if there's a subject you want us to explore, or if you want us to, or indeed if you want to join us on the pod, tweet us at Association Transformation or email us at hello@yourconsort.com, and we will do our absolute best to draw on our networks and pull together a pod that we hope and think will be worth listening to.
Despite Andrew's sense of humor, we hope you've enjoyed listening to our musings. We're working to bring you new and challenging topics. And from wherever you access your podcast, we hope you'll add Association Transformation to your favorites and hopefully never miss an episode. Until then, stay well and put your members and your mission first.